Hello. Hello. Yeah, we'll be getting into the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Just like I said, I'm gonna turn off the outfits. Like, yeah, from last stream. Okay, let's get into it. August 10:41 a.m. Supreme Court of Judicature, Defendant's Antechamber 3. I'm so sorry, Sasato. I should have told you about the toxin. Ray. You have a strong sense of responsibility, I know. That's why you decided to shoulder the burden alone. No, that's not it at all. I was scared of my failure coming to light, that is all. So I hoped to retrieve the substance from the Englishwoman before anyone found out. Before the trial started, do you remember what you said, Sasato? That you had no doubt in your mind about my innocence, that you'd stand by me to the last. I remember. And yet, I didn't deserve your trust in me. I hid important details from you, Sasato. I completely betrayed your faith in me. Hit me, Sasato. I deserve it. No, in fact, throw me to the floor. No, that's too good for me as well. Drag me through the city streets. I'm no better, you know. Oh. Even though in my heart I knew that you'd pulled the knife blade from Miss Brett's back, there was just a brief moment when, in my mind, I doubted you. Sasato! I'm sorry. After I stood here and promised you that I'd stand by you and always be on your side, I betrayed your faith in me too. And as such, I failed you as a lawyer. Oh no. I think this situation has taught both of you a valuable lesson. Placing your unbridled faith in another is no easy task. Yes, Father. That fact has certainly struck home. Which is why I can see more clearly now. So, Ray. Yes? Can you find it in your heart to forgive me? Oh, Sasato. You know, you'll always be a gallant, dashing lawyer in my eyes now. Oh, Ray. I was so scared, you know, when it happened. I didn't know what was going on. The Englishwoman was sitting at the back of the hut, listening to what I was saying. I know it was you who stole the poison. Well now. Whatever do you mean? And then, a moment later, she suddenly got to her feet. Before collapsing on the floor in front of me, with a knife in her back. It all happened right before my eyes. And you were the only people in the hut at the time? That is right. Just Miss Brett and myself. There was no one else. So I just don't understand how she could possibly have been stabbed like that. A great mystery indeed. I still can't believe it happened. That is why I just couldn't bring myself to speak up. It will be alright. However it happened, and whatever really went on by the sea that day, I promise you that I'm going to prove everything you said you saw is true. Spoken like a true Mikotoba. Now, I think we should discuss what's coming up in the trial, don't you? We don't have much time. We must make sure we have our facts in order. Yes, I expect the poison is going to come under close scrutiny in the upcoming proceedings. The police should hopefully have identified it on the blade by now. The trouble is, it is a completely new laboratory synthesized blend of alkaloids. The police won't have any way of testing for it. Oh, I see. Yes, without this chemical reagent, it's impossible to detect the toxin. Chemical reagent? I sent a colleague of mine off with some earlier to deliver to police headquarters. I think perhaps you should have some as well, though, just in case. Okay. What is the matter, Sasato? You're suddenly very quiet. It is this newspaper article. Exclusive, deadly poison stolen from Yume Medical Research Laboratory. I'm wondering how the information got out, given that it was a government secret. It was all the Englishwoman's doing. What? It was when the professor and Sasaki-san were being interviewed at the laboratory. That so-called English lady swaned in and without any compunction said to Professor Mikitoba, "Oh, Professor, surely your guest would love to hear about your work on that substance there." It put me in a very awkward position, to be frank. But Sasaki-san's curiosity had been piqued, so I had little choice but to give him a cursory introduction. So then, Sasaki-san knew about the poison. Yes, and it's highly likely that the reporter who was writing up the story about us would have caught a glimpse of the toxin too. This Mini Memo-san, God, it's so hard for me to say his name. By the way, did that reporter join you all when you went to the beach? Oh, no, I don't remember the reporter being there. Indeed, he shouldn't have been. I very much doubt anyone would have wanted him there. Oh? A known criminal had been given permission by the authorities to bathe by the seaside. Sasaki-san pointed out that inviting a reporter might be problematic, so the man was sent back to his office. Yet he obviously didn't go back. He secretly followed the party to the beach and took this very candid photograph. And then, presumably, he posted it anonymously to the police. God, I am struggling so hard with words today. Ah. It's like that every stream when I have to stream The Great Ace Attorney. Yes, that must be what happened. Counsel! We've just heard that the new witness is now ready to testify. The trial is about to resume. Please proceed to the courtroom at once. It is time to steel ourselves once again, then. Defense Attorney Ryotaro Naruhodo. Yes! Ray has put her faith in me now and told me everything. So I can't let her down. I have to prove that what she's telling to the court is true. I have to prove what really happened that day. 13th August, 11:30 a.m. Supreme Court of Judicature, Courtroom 1. I think after The Great Ace Attorney, I might just stream Team TF2 for a while. Because, well, I don't really know what I should stream. I hereby call this court to order, as we reconvene to continue the trial of Ray Membami. Prosecutor Auchi, have you summoned the new witness? Before I address that question, Your Excellency, I have some very important news to share. Oh? What news? That actually looks so good. And why does he look so happy about it? During the recess, with the collaboration of Professor Mikitoba's laboratory at Yume University, the police re-examined the knife that was used to end Miss Giselle Brett's life. Excellent. I admire your rapid handling of the matter. Oh, too kind, Your Excellency, too kind. I was merely carrying out your instructions, of course. I had the regent delivered to police headquarters by rickshaw, so it'd be there in good time. But judging by the man's swagger, I fear we might need to brace ourselves for the inevitable. And, counsel, what were the results? This dagger, which was so cruelly used to end the life of the victim, has no trace of poison anywhere along its blade. What? What? Are you sure about that? I would stake the reputation of the police on it. Armed with the Regent, the test is extremely simple. They couldn't have made a mistake. In short, the accused's feeble excuse earlier. Well, let's go check the blade itself. Ah yes, this must be the victim's blood. Oh dear, blood is never a pretty sight, is it? I'm having to fight the urge to run it under a hot tap and clean it and get it clean. You've always been fastidious about cleanliness, haven't you? I think this is something else, Father. Yeah. There's nothing particular about the knife that I can work with. Let's also check the poison. The label appears to be written in a foreign language that I don't know. Ah, it's German. So your knowledge of English is going to be of little help here, I'm afraid. Couldn't you just have written medicine on it in Japanese? Then we'd all be able to read it. German is the international language of medicine, my dear. But yes, I can certainly see the merit in labeling the bottle in Japanese. Though I'm not sure medicine would be entirely appropriate. Well, I mean, yeah. It definitely wouldn't have been. Has been utterly destroyed. Ah! Now, the prosecution is ready to call the new witness. So there's no poison on the blade. Ah, the newspaper reporter who managed to capture a photograph of the crucial moment. Good. Very well, officer. Bring in the witness. No trace of poison on the knife. But if that is really the case, how could the toxin have entered the victim's body? Why is this hand blue? Witness, please state your name and occupation for the court. Rayton Menimo. Yeah. Rayton Menimemo of the Shoyu News. I'm what people like you like to call a journo. What is a journo, Father? Do you know? It is a simple contraction of journalist. I am there where the news breaks, putting pen to paper to catch the scoops so they are in print the next morning. They don't call me the hero of the Herald for nothing. The nice guy of the news. Oh, so, it was you who took this photograph, wasn't it? Well, what have we here? I'm sorry? Oh, brace yourselves, people. Many memo, since is a scoop in the offing. Female student up to foul play defended by curiously handsome young lawyer in Supreme Court. The readers will lap this up. We'll set it above the fold at the hold on. At the what? At 72 point in a 5-leg format for the morning edition. I still don't understand it. Huh? Right then. Let's start with your name. It is Ryutaro Naruhodo. Next, what made you want to become a lawyer? I wanted to reform our country's legal system, I suppose. Ryutaro has suddenly become very ambitious, I see. I just borrowed Kazuma-sama's dream for a while. By the way, my name is Taketsuchi Aochi. That is Taketsuchi Aochi. The so-called dark horse of the Supreme Court. My objections strike fear into every defense lawyer's heart. No, the readers won't buy that. What? Witness. Yes? What this court demands to know is whether or not you are responsible for the taking of this picture. It was delivered anonymously to the Imperial Police Bureau only yesterday. Yeah, I wouldn't be a journo if I didn't click quick when presented with a scoop like that now, would I? Sometimes stories call out to me, sometimes I have to chase them down, but either way, you've got to be fast. Fast legs to run with and a fast hand to write with. It's no good if you don't note it down, I always say. That is what I call, many-memoism. Mini-memo. Mini-memo noise. I can't say that. It's so it doesn't roll off the tongue easily. Ah yes, I remember your face. We met that day when you were interviewing myself and Sasuke-san. Yes, right. That was me. Many-memo again. But you were supposed to be going back to the Shoyu news offices after our meeting. But the scoop is, I didn't. Because that Englishwoman's words had piqued my journalistic interest. Miss Brett's words? A criminal left to do as she pleases just because she happens to be a British citizen? It is horse dung. This country's judiciary is rotten to the core. The Supreme Court's ruling aren't worth the paper they are written on. The police are just imperial pawns. Stay your tongue, young man. There are complex political issues at play. Humph. Well, anyway. I quickly jotted down those words she said in my memo pad. Are you ready? I'll read it out. It's all here, right? Here goes. I should like to go with everyone to see your country's coasts. A serious criminal going on some junket? The people need to know about this. That is why I decided to sneak after them. To get the woman's story so I could hammer her in the press. Do you mean to say that you did indeed witness it firsthand? The grim scene portrayed in this photograph? Oh yes, I saw it with my own very journo eyes. From start to finish, through the viewfinder. Thank you, Memo-san. You will now give a formal testimony before the court. You will state exactly what it is you witnessed of the events surrounding Miss Brett's death. Camera never lies. The beach hut was made of shoddy old reed screens, so there were plenty of gaps I could see inside through. The Englishwoman was sitting on a stool when the student girl came in and started arguing with her. Seconds later, the girl pulled out a knife, throwing the Englishwoman to the floor as she stabbed her in the back. My smoldering journo spirit burst into flames. Quick as a flash, I whipped out my camera, ready to click. I pulled apart the rough weave of one of the screens and poked the lens through for the perfect shot. Reed screens, you say? Right. You can see them clearly enough in that great shot I snapped. The hut walls were just screens made of coarsely woven reeds. Yes, it allows the breeze to pass through and bring some relief from the summer heat. And it was a breeze for me to poke my camera through and see the whole thing hotting up. Ignoring for the time being the appalling invasion of privacy involved. Did you witness everything that happened from the moment the defendant entered the hut? Oh yes, I saw it. I saw the whole thing from start to finish. And you say that you took the photograph through a gap in one of the screens? Luckily for me, they were pretty shoddily woven. I pulled the reeds apart and thrust the lens of my camera through the gap. Would I get away with it, or would I be seen? It was like the gamble of a lifetime. A tenacity of purpose that is considered admirable in a journalist, I suppose. Run a risk one day, run a scoop at the next. That is many-memoism. Many-memoism in a nutshell. At last. It would appear we have a genuine witness to the wicked crime. The evidence and testimony are extremely compelling. I believe we may be close to a verdict. No. Wonderful news, Your Excellency. Wonderful. Nevertheless, it cannot be denied that this testimony begs one very large question. What question? Exclusive news, a startling photograph, and all the makings of an exceptional story for the reporter. Why then was the story never published? Oh, that is right. It seems clear to me that there are circumstances at play here that are yet to be understood. Ha! More pathetic excuses. Very well then, counsel. Proceed with your cross-examination. Yes, Your Excellency. There's more to this reporter than meets the eye. He's keeping something about this case very close to his chest. We probably should inspect his camera. That might be what that's hinting at. Okay, the camera never lies. Oh, I don't know what to do, so let's press. What made you want to see what was happening inside the beach hut in the first place? Call it journo instinct. Can you think of a better reason? Oh, I don't know. Perhaps because as well as being a proven criminal, the person inside was a young woman? Ah, I see where you're going with this. Brace yourselves, people. He's painting the journo as a voyeur. It is hardly slander, sir. You had a camera and you were taking pictures without the woman's knowledge. Nope, you've got it all wrong, little student boy. Sorry? To my mind, all that was inside that hut was the scoop. Nothing more, nothing less. Scoops know no gender, man or woman. It is all news. That is not even many memoism. It is basic journalism. If only the courtroom was as indiscriminate. Right, so if that is all buttoned up, can we move on? Tell the court then, witness, what sight befell your eyes when you looked inside the hut? A sight that vindicated my journo instinct, that's what. When I pulled back the reeds, I could see it all as clear as day.
Hold it.
So you actually saw Mimbami-san entering the hut? Yep, and she was raging. Raging like my journo spirit. And the argument you mentioned, what was that about exactly? You stole it. I didn't steal it. That kind of thing. Talking about the poison, I suppose. The student girl walked right up to the Englishwoman and really started laying into her. I mean, if she'd laid into her anymore, there would have been eggs. The man should have been an author. His descriptive talents are wasted on journalism. But the student's rantings fell on deaf ears, like a Japanese person listening to English for the first time. He really ought to work on his similes first, though, to be honest. Anyway, the point is, that woman in the dock was mightily angry. And her temper finally got the better of her, it seems. Dear me. Which was the climactic moment that I caught on film.
Hold it.
Do you swear before this court that you actually saw the precise moment when the stabbing took place? Ha! The precise moment? I didn't see just that. I saw the whole hellish scene play out, from start to finish. I have here a simple plan of the beach hut. Perhaps you could use it to explain to the court exactly what you witnessed? Right you are. It's all here in my memo pad. When I first peered into the hut, I'm sure that the Englishwoman was on this stool at the back of the hut here. I mean, what's stopping someone from just stabbing her through the back from this side, since we already learned that the reed walls were shoddily woven together. Yes, the accused on testimony confirmed that. She just sat at the back of the hut, smiling sweetly. It is what I have noted down. It's my turn to testify now. Try not to interrupt. Then, the next moment, as I was watching, the evil student girl entered the hut. After a while, the pair of them ended up in the middle of the hut, arguing furiously. The Englishwoman went for the student, but the girl dodged out of the way. And, in a flash, plunged the knife into her adversary's back as the two passed each other. What you describe as a grim crime indeed. Never sugarcoat the truth. That's what many memoism says. Beachhead Hut plan has been entered into the court record. By the way, Many Memo-san, whilst you were watching that terrible scene unfold before your eyes through the gap in the screen, did it not occur to you to try to prevent the tragedy rather than capture it on film? Journalists have to be observers. We can't get involved. That's our raison d'etre. So, basically, that just kind of sounds like he's admitting to murdering Giselle Brett, because I'm pretty sure it's normal to try to stop a murder. So, you didn't converse with Miss Brett at all? Obviously not. An observer always remains on the outside looking in. And that is something to be proud of, is it? Your Excellency, if I may. Yes, Professor? I think the witness's last expertly phrased statement should perhaps be added to his formal testimony. Father, what are you... I will grant the defense's request. Many Memo-san, you will supplement your formal testimony with the aforementioned one. Well, nihilism is the foundation of many Memoism, but I'll gladly prove that my words aren't meaningless. Okay. I'm gonna press this. Really? You didn't set foot inside the hut at all? Are you quite sure about that? I think you may have the wrong impression of me. We were talking about a murder scene here. My nerves were stretched to breaking point already. Oh, I see. You were scared? Maybe I did have the wrong impression of you, yes. It was all I could do to stifle a scream and hold my hand steady enough to snap the shot. You really should have summoned help before thinking of your camera. Many Memoism and humanism don't always agree. And most of the time, in those instances, many Memoism comes out on top. I'm already done with this guy. As a sculptor of stories, sometimes I have to be cruel for my art. Yes, that is spot on. Surely he's making all this up. He claims to have spied the whole affair from the start to finish. If true, his testimony is devastating. But it does seem as though he's holding something back, doesn't it? I mean, RM, which is Raymond Bami, which can both be Raymond Bami and Rayton Many Memo. So, if that is how you feel, I suggest that you trust your instincts and press him on everything he said, as you've no doubt seen done many times before in your role as a judicial assistant. Yes, I have. I've seen witnesses like this pressed often. I know exactly what to do. Okay. So, I mean... It'd be... He's got blue ink on his hand. If the pen also has blue ink, that would work too. Like...
Objection!
Yeah, there we go. Many Memo-san, until now I have had a firm belief that newspapers are in business of uncovering and publishing the truth. You're spot on there. The press doesn't lie, which is why I'm proud to wear the emblem of the Shoyu News on my arm. In a way, that is more mini-memoism. I just didn't notice this at all. God, I'm not paying attention. In a way I should. Sadly, though, it seems the journalists who write for those papers don't always share the same passion for the truth. What are you suggesting with those recriminatory words, Counsel? Memo-san, do you recognize this fountain pen? Ah! This pen was found at the scene of Miss Brett's death. In fact, the murdered victim was gripping it in her hand as she died. What are you? If you look at the barrel of the pen, you'll notice that its owner's initials are engraved there. R.M. Yes, thank you for pointing that out, Counsel. The initials of the accused, Raymond Bami. Is it a coincidence, I wonder, that your initials are also R.M.? No. Written memo, R.M. That is horse dung. Can't you see? One of the central tenets of mini-memoism is being a pencil user. And yet, as the court will clearly be able to see, on your right hand, there's a very obvious blue ink stain. It would appear that you must have rather carelessly left it somewhere recently. Your favorite fountain pen, that is. Horsey horse dung. Memo-san, is it not the case that before she died, you met with Giselle Brett in that beach hut? Why should we listen to this absurd nonsense? It is nothing but another excuse. Exactly! Shoyu News will stand behind me all the way. I deny everything. There must be as many people with the initials RM as there are stars in the night sky. The defense has neither the time nor the inclination to account every star in the sky. Huh? And there's no need anyway, because this pen has more to tell. Yes, there's another clue. A clue that undeniably proves who its owner really is. In that case, Counsel, the defense will now show the court where this alleged clue lies. Of course, Your Excellency. It's right there. The clue on this fountain pen that clearly reveals its owner identity? Right there. Some sort of emblem here. Look, but it isn't a Yume University one. It must belong to some other organization, I suppose. A business of some kind. But that would seem to imply that the pen doesn't in fact belong to Ray. As well as the initials, there is also an emblem on this fountain pen. An emblem that you will, of course, recognize, Memo-san. Goodness me, it is the emblem of the Shoyu News. In other words, the owner of this pen is an employee of the Shoyu News whose initials are RM. Suddenly, the stars in the night sky don't seem to be so numerous, do they? Well, Memo-san, how do you respond? No! Order, order! Explain yourself, witness! Ha ha ha. So, this is how the mighty Supreme Court works, is it? Using coercive tactics to have well-meaning citizens reveal harmless secrets. I've used nothing but honest tactics. Alright then, fine. I won't try to hide it anymore. Yes, not long before that grim tragedy unfolded, I, a Shoyu News reporter on behalf of the public, conducted an interview with the Englishwoman. An interview? You never mentioned this before. When exactly was this? As I said, it was before that evil little student girl showed her face in the hut. It couldn't have lasted more than 2 or 3 minutes. That is all. It was just a brief exchange. But it came to nothing, and as we Many memoists say the people don't pay their dues for unworthy news. However insignificant you deem it to be, this court cannot overlook the meeting between yourself and the victim. You will testify now under oath about the precise nature of this meeting and what transpired. Got it. Yes, alright, but... on one condition. Condition? In all good conscience, I couldn't speak out alone about this. You need to call back the earlier witness, Sasaki Natsume-san. Sasaki-san? Oh yes, according to my notes here, that man has a secret of his own, and brace yourselves, because it's not a harmless one, it is big. What? What? Minimalism states that one man's secret is every other man's front page story. Very well, I will grant the witness's request in this instance. Officer, summon the earlier witness back to the stand. Sasaki-san, hiding something? The witness's secrets. I asked the Englishwoman for an interview, but she declined, so I left the hut without making a fuss. Then, watching secretly from outside, I saw the woman being stabbed and the other witnesses coming running in. He just looks like he's just looking everywhere but directly forward. The detective has realized that the victim still had a pulse, so he ran off to fetch help. That is when this writer man here asked the woman a very significant question. But he didn't say anything about that in his testimony, which is why many memoism demands I reveal it now. I don't think the first, at least the first two ones are that important. You mean to say the victim? The victim regained consciousness? And when she did, you decided to ask her a question? That is, true, yes. He did, and that is not all. The woman gave him a very definite answer. An answer that incriminates the accused. This is preposterous. Why am I only hearing about this now? Why didn't you mention this before, you yokel hack? It wasn't even a conversation. Yes, I did post the Withering English Rose a question. I don't deny it, but she could no longer speak. She was barely conscious, even. Counsel for the defense, I expect a thorough cross-examination to be conducted here. This court must and will know the truth. Absolutely, Your Excellency. The reporter is claiming that Miss Brett implicated Ray somehow. What on earth could have happened in that hut? The witness's secrets. Asked the Englishwoman for an interview, but she declined. That one doesn't seem like I need to investigate. To realize that the victim still had a pulse. This is where we'll start. And Sasaki-san remained behind in the hut? That is right. Yep, our author friend here was a blabbering wreck, shaking all over from his head to his toes, mustache twitching, eyes bulging. What do you expect? You don't know the terrifying troubles that taunted me whilst I was traveling abroad, back behind baleful bars. They'll be coming for me, surely. That is all I could think. I felt as though I were grasping for air, drowning in a sea of cold sweat. Poor Sasaki-san. His experiences in London have scarred him deeply. As the world seemed to close around me, I quietly recited a prayer to Amida Buddha. Eternal emptiness, eternity. The end is coming for me, surely. No sutras are to resound in my courtroom, please. And now, we come to the crucial part. That is when it happened. Very significant question. Yeah. What question? What exactly did he say? Well now, you should hear that from the horse's mouth, I think. Don't you, Mr. Riderman? Ah! Oh, sorry. Accidentally clicked. Out with it, you yokel hack! What did you say to her? What did you say to the dying Englishwoman? Well, in truth, I'd been catching crabs at the water's edge and building castles on the sand, you see. Well, the seaside is a place to be at leisure, I suppose, even for a grown man. But then, all of a sudden, from that little beach hut, a young girl's panic-stricken cries for help pierced the air. Ray. I ran up the beach to see what was happening, to find the defendant leaning over the collapsed victim. As soon as Inspector Hosanaga saw Miss Brett on the ground, he sprinted off to get help. And then, just a moment later, I heard a faint moan, a moan from the dead Englishwoman. I nearly jumped out of my skin! But, what did you ask her, Sasaki-san? I asked her, who did this to you? Don't protract this any longer. How did the woman respond? She didn't. She said nothing in response. But... what did she do? When in the stand, you will answer the questions asked of you unambiguously. Now, without evasion or reticence, I demand that you amend your testimony. I will! I asked her who did this to you, but she never replied. She just lifted a trembling finger and pointed it in the direction of the defendant. Poor Sasaki-san has been fidgeting constantly in the stand next to Memo-san. Yes, like a naughty child who's waiting for punishment from his parents. It rather reminds me of you when you were younger. I was like that? Never mind that now. The question is, how far can we trust this reporter's account of events? We must focus our energies on gathering information and establishing facts. Yes. Okay, I'm gonna go press the new statement.
Hold it.
So you tried to find out who the culprit was. He who asks a question is a fool for a minute. He who does not remains a fool forever. And having been labeled a criminal twice during my time in Great Britain, I was quick to make up my mind. Better to be a fool for a minute than remain a fool in prison forever. However, you've indicated that the victim failed to respond. Is that correct? I know why. I know why the Englishwoman said nothing. She was ignoring me because of my stoop and mustache, just because I'm Japanese. Oh dear. Sasaki-san has really developed a dislike for the English, it seems. Having read the report on his time in Great Britain, I can't say I'm surprised at his xenophobia. But the Englishwoman didn't ignore you at all. Did she, Mr. Riderman? Huh? Well, yes, alright. She did respond in a manner of speaking, I suppose. Miss Brett pointed a finger at the defendant? Sasaki-san, is that really true? It's not easy to stand here and say this, but when we first encountered the beach hut, when we first entered the beach hut, the Englishwoman was sprawled on the floor before us, with the student girl standing on the far side of her. And when I asked, who did this to you? The Englishwoman summoned her last ounce of strength to point a trembling finger at the back of the hut, which was, it can't be denied, in the direction of the student girl who stands accused today. No. Sasaki-san, why on earth did you neglect to mention this in your original testimony? But, fiddlesticks, I say. This is not a British court of law. You will respond in Japanese. Yes, of course, the Englishwoman did point her finger towards the back of the hut, but I was trembling, and she was trembling, and everything was a blur. And thinking about it now, I feel as though perhaps she was pointing in a slightly different direction. Actually, no, not slightly, in a very different direction to where the student girl was standing. Somewhere at the back of the hut where nobody was standing at all. You mean that your memory of events and the direction in which the victim was pointing are both unclear? Yes, that is it. Unclear. I'm very, very unclear.
Objection!
Your Excellency, surely this proves the matter beyond all reasonable doubt. Yes, the woman may barely have been conscious. And yes, perhaps her finger wavered slightly, but there can be no doubt that this was an attempt by the victim to confirm the identity of her assailant. Why? Because as the court can see, there was no other than the accused in the direction that the victim was pointing. It is now abundantly clear that no one besides the accused could possibly have committed this crime. I'm inclined to agree. And in the absence of any credible argument to the contrary, I believe we can now conclude this trial. No. No! The headline's writing itself. Dashing lawyer's hopes dashed. 92 point across the whole page. We'll do an extra edition. This is a serious blow, Sasato. Unless we are able to identify the true culprit and substantiate our claim with evidence, the judge will give his ruling and the trial will be over. But that is impossible, Father. We don't even know how the crime was committed yet. Impossible though the task may seem, we have no choice. We must think back over everything we've learned thus far. Somewhere in all those details, I am confident we'll find the clue we need. Ray gave us her account of how events unfolded in the defendant's antechamber before the trial resumed. She told us what happened at the precise moment Miss Brett was killed. The Englishwoman was sitting at the back of the hut, listening to what I was saying. And then, a moment later, she suddenly got to her feet. Yeah, she was totally stabbed from behind while she was sitting in the chair, before collapsing on the floor in front of me with the knife in her back. I bet it was, well, yeah, I believe it's that journalist who stabbed her in the back. How could Miss Brett have been stabbed in the back in a beach hut that was nearly empty but for herself and Ray? Somewhere amid all the information we've gathered so far, there must be an answer to that question. There was. I take it then that the defense has nothing further to add. So the gallant yokel student's luck finally runs out. I can't say I'm surprised. In that case, I am ready to deliver my final verdict on this matter. This is a crucial turning point now. If I can't establish what's really happened, it is over. Where was the real culprit hiding? And how did he or she stab the victim? I know how.
Objection!
Your Excellency, I respectfully ask you to postpone your adjudication for the time being. Oh, to what end, counsel? The defense would like to present the court with an alternative theory. An alternative theory that can explain who the victim was actually trying to implicate with her dying gesture.
Objection!
An alternative theory? Ha, none exists.
Objection!
There was someone else present at the scene who could have committed this crime. What? And the victim, Miss Brett, tried to reveal who it was to those around her at the time by mustering all her remaining strength and pointing a trembling finger in the killer's direction. This is fiction, fantasy. Very well, as you seem so sure of yourself, counsel, I'm prepared to hear your alternative theory. So, young Ryutaro Naruhodo? Yes, Your Excellency. You will present your latest theory to the court by means of this plan. The moment the victim was stabbed, where exactly are you proposing the culprit was concealed? Well, right here. She was stabbed in the chair.
Take that!
So, yeah. Naruhodo-san would never give up, and I'm a Naruhodo now. The true culprit who fatally stabbed Miss Brett was concealed in this location here. Are you mad, counsel? You're suggesting the culprit was outside the hut? What? He looks surprised too, so something. Order, order, order! But soon lawyer Naruhodo Esquire. That makes no sense at all. You've just pointed out the exact spot where I was hiding to get my scoop snap. But I didn't see any suspicious individuals loitering about, I can swear to that. Obviously, if the culprit had been outside the hut, there's no way he or she could have stabbed the victim who was inside the hut. Actually, Prosecutor Aochu, there is a way. And in point of fact, the defense can provide evidence strongly suggesting that is precisely the way Miss Brett was killed. You're bluffing! You're bluffing, you yokel! The defense's assertion is clearly too fantastical for the court to comprehend. You will need to give us more guidance, counsel. What piece of evidence corroborates your theory that the victim was stabbed from outside the hut? I'm gonna present this.
Take that.
Well, I've presented it now, but I haven't the first idea why I chose this piece of evidence. Counsel, you are suggesting that this piece of evidence bears out your theory as to how the victim was stabbed. It is something of a windfall, Your Excellency. I think the word you were looking for, counsel, was downfall, but... If your theory is correct and the knife was thrust into Miss Brett's back from outside the hut, I thought that would... There should be a visible trace somewhere. A trace? Yes, on the hut itself. Armed with that idea, I must look through the court record again. Then it has to be in this one. Yeah, right here. So I somewhat had a similar idea, I guess. Your Excellency, the defense would like to present a different piece of evidence. Go ahead. What piece of evidence corroborates your theory that the victim was stabbed from outside the hut? This one.
Take
The
that.
original photographic print of the crime scene? Yes, it is clearly visible in this print. The trace of the fatal thrust that was delivered from outside the beach hut.
Objection.
Do you take us for fools? There is no hint of any such thing. I'm not sure that everyone present would agree. Someone, at least, appears to have noticed what it is that I'm referring to. Counsel, once again, I must call on you to be explicit for the court. Where on this photograph is the trace of the stabbing, which you claim took place from the outside the hut? Right there.
Take that.
Look closely just here. In the screen at the back of the hut, you can see the effects of a blade having been forced through the reeds. No, I can't. I can't see any such thing. It is true that the hut in question had 4 walls as you'd expect. However, by parting the reeds, a knife blade could easily penetrate them. This is extraordinary. Yes. The true culprit actually stabbed the victim from outside the beach hut. And of everyone present at the scene, there's only one person who could have done that. Only one person who was directly outside the hut when Miss Brett was killed. Raten Many Memo-san. It could only have been you, and I still can't pronounce your name. No!
Objection.
This preposterous idea leaves me almost speechless. Just look at the photograph again. The victim lies almost exactly in the center of the beach hut, does she not? Are we to assume, as part of this farcical scenario, that the assailant was a knife thrower?
Objection.
No, of course not. We are not? If you recall the testimony of the defendant about the events just before the victim's death. Inside the beach hut, I confronted Miss Brett. But she just sat on a stool at the back of the hut, smiling sweetly to me as if she knew she was untouchable. A stool. Have another look at the photograph. The slit in the reed screen would align perfectly with the back of a person who was sitting on the stool. My word. So, in fact, the victim was killed while sitting on that stool by a stab wound to her back delivered through the reed screen. Having been attacked, Miss Brett rose to her feet instinctively, but then, unable to speak, she collapsed on the floor in the middle of the hut, before the defendant, Membami-san's appalled eyes. And that, Your Excellency, is the truth of what happened on the beach that day. By your silence, Minimemo-san, I take it that you don't deny the charge. This is absurd. That will do. It would appear that we have a tacit admission of guilt from the witness. Accordingly, this court has successfully established the truth of this matter, which means that the defendant, Membami-san, is innocent of the crime. Oh, thank goodness. I finally made him cave. I must say, I've never been more proud. No, this can't be. The Aochi clan can't. What of my growth? My growth of hope. It wasn't all an apparition. I can't accept this. I won't. I see no reason for the continuance of this trial. I will therefore move to conclude proceedings by delivering my final verdict and... Who? Well, this is all very convenient. This is how the highest court in our mighty empire delivers justice, is it? Suppressing well-meaning citizens' freedom to speak and branding them as criminals. But we've established that the victim was stabbed from outside the hut, through the reed screen walls. And no one but you was in place at the time to have his hand on the hilt of the blade. It is a perfectly logical deduction. So, your argument hinges on the location of whoever stabbed the Englishwoman, does it? Well, it seems a little irrelevant now. Irrelevant? Where she was stabbed, how she was stabbed. It doesn't matter. I mean, whether she was stabbed at all makes no difference if you think about it. After all, the trial's already shown the whole thing hinges on something else. What are you talking about? Brace yourself, little man. I'm talking about the fact that everything's changed because of the dirt you dug up. Motives? Maybe? Because we didn't prove his motive. We proved a lot of things, but not his motive, but... What? Enough obscurity. Explain yourself, witness. What is to explain? I'm talking about the poison, of course. The poison? Let's ask the professor for a comment on the situation, shall we? I understand that a deadly poison you are developing was stolen from your laboratory, correct? And it has been shown that this poison was administered to the victim, Miss Brett. Is that right? That is correct. The unusual constriction of the victim's pupils are a sure sign that this particular poison was used. I see. So, presumably that means that the victim already had the poison in her body before she was stabbed. Given that her pupils were clearly constricted, it seems highly likely, yes? If she had been dead already, the poison could not have circulated in her blood. And he looks confident again. How refreshing to hear the argument of a metropolitan mind. Precisely. It matters not a jot who stabbed whom in whose back and with whose blade. Because quite simply, the Englishwoman's life was taken not by the knife, but by the poison.
Objection!
But that can be explained by the poison being on the blade, as I already...
Objection!
The poison isn't on the blade, though. Ta-ha-ha! Forgotten already, have we, yokel? During these very proceedings, the laboratory of the professor at your side assisted in proving. The blade of the weapon used to attack the victim had no trace of poison on it whatsoever. So, let me get this down. The facts, as skillfully established by the defense in this trial, skillfully spelled wrong, turn out to be a headline making red herring. Is that about right? Ugh. Well. Ah! Order, order, order! But where does this leave us? How in that case did the poison enter the victim's body? There's an undeniably obvious answer to that. The lady most likely imbibed it. Imbibed it. You mean she drank it? Having another look at this photograph here, as you can see, a bottle of carbonated water in a glass had been knocked onto the sandy floor of the beach hut. The poison could have been slipped into either. Somebody made Miss Brett drink it. Well, what do you know? Look at those dashing eyes. This will make a great front page shot. Hey, why the bewitching stare? After all, I'm the last person you should be looking at. It'd make no sense at all that I poisoned the woman, would it? I mean, that's been established already.
Hold it.
Established? What are you talking about? Don't tell me you've forgotten. That is a little hard to believe, given that the person who established it was you. Me? What on earth does he mean? Oh, let me capture those wide eyes. This is prime press fodder. This is. It would seem that this trial is not destined to end yet, after all. I hereby call upon the witness to give further testimony. That is great. That is. Let me get a shot of that magnificent beard, Your Excellency. You claim it to be impossible that you were the one who responsible for administering the poison to the victim. You will explain to the court in your testimony the basis upon which you make such a claim. I'm a journo and a man. I've never tried to run or hide from anything in my life. And I'm not about to start now, because that is many memoism. For a brief moment, I thought I'd illuminated the truth, but it slipped right back into obscurity again. Just where's this trial going to take us? Oh yes, established. I stabbed the English woman, and that is the very fact that proves I'm innocent. Because why would I have bothered to stab the woman if I've already poisoned her? When I heard the student girl and that pompous English murderer arguing, it got my goat. If the court weren't going to punish Brett for what she did, someone else would have to see justice done. So, you admit it then, that everything happened as I described. That you are the one who stabbed Miss Brett in the back through the read screen. You can blame this miserable country of ours. A country that bows to the pressure of foreign powers and lets murderers walk free. What kind of future can a country like that have? That is why I did it. I did what our pathetic leaders didn't have the guts to do. Slap bang in the middle of that charming lady's back. I plunged the blade of sweet justice right in there. So he just admitted to stabbing her and basically attempted murder. As someone who spends his life seeing that the truth is told, I feel really, really awful about giving false information in my testimony before. But as it turns out, there was somebody else who had it in for the victim, and got to her before me. That is right, you guessed it. That pretty little student girl. Now there's a woman after my own heart. You're implicating Ray again. She's the one who gave the poison to the English woman and ended her pitiful existence. And suddenly, snap, this journal here is off the hook. The argument is sound, certainly. If the witness had administered the poison himself, he need only have waited for it to take effect. Subsequently, stabbing the victim in the back would have been entirely nonsensical. And therefore, this reporter had nothing to do with the poisoning. Yes, it is all quite logical. That is right, it is. Logical and true. I'm glad you've all seen the light. Just at last. This is unbelievable. And after I'd been I'd made so much progress in improving his skill. Is he going to get away with it now? Think of Kazuma-sama and Naruhodo-san. They never stopped looking for a way forward until the judge's final gavel. Very well then, counsel. Proceed with what I assume to be your final cross-examination in this trial. Yes, Your Excellency. Okay. I'm surprised you can just go out there and admit you stabbed someone, and that's how you're innocent. Because that is wild. So, you do admit that you had murderous intentions towards Miss Brett then. Ha! The woman's very existence has offended my sense of justice. Your sense of... he's claiming some sort of righteous indignation. She was pure evil, a cold-blooded killer who'd committed murder right here on our empire's soil. But did our good-for-nothing government do anything? Not a chance, so I had to step in. Fly the flag of justice, put things right for the people. Yes, it was my civic duty. That is what drove me to do it. So, in summary, murderous intentions then. Whatever you want to call it. The point is, that Englishwoman was a blight. So, I had to do what was right for society. Yet a real wrong was done by the student girl in the dock. A crime for which she must pay. Obviously, because the poisoning was nothing to do with me at all.
Hold it.
So, you still maintain that you didn't give the poison to the victim? Obviously, that'd be like putting a belt on your trousers when you're already wearing braces like these. The accused administered the poison, following which this victim stabbed the victim stabbed the witness. This witness stabbed the victim. An unforgivable act, certainly, but not one of murder. That crime rests on the accused's shoulders. That is how the law works, you see, yokel. Who knows? You may even learn something here today. 2 consecutive attempts on her life in the space of 2 minutes? Quite a day for the victim. I don't know where I got 2 minutes. Oh, that's where. I just read the first word of the beginning of the sentence twice. There. Do something that evil and you've got it coming. That's how the law works. The law of reckoning. That is not the kind of law this court upholds. You will reiterate why you were compelled to stab the victim then, witness? When I heard the student girl and that pompous English murderer arguing, it got my goat. What exactly were they arguing about? About what happened in that restaurant 9 months ago, that is what. The student girl was laying into the Englishwoman for killing her beloved mentor, Dr. Wilson. Yes, John H. Wilson, a professor of medicine, invited here from England by Professor Mikitoba, no less. Right, but the Englishwoman just jeered. Her case was to be heard by the British Consular Court in Shanghai, however. There is little doubt that she would simply have been acquitted and sent back to her homeland as a free woman. It was eating that student girl up inside, you could see it. I really felt for her. I can't stand here and listen to this tripe. Ray, young girl, you stand accused here. You can't just blurt out whenever you feel like it. No, you can't. Sorry, but I'm in the middle of some very important testimony here. Just keep quiet and listen. But this awful man is making all of this up. So, please, you have to make them listen. Return to the dock at once, Membami-san. We are in the middle of a cross-examination. Your Excellency, please, I implore you. That journalist is clearly not a trustworthy witness. Exactly. He's a filthy, rotten, black-hearted, bigoted, dirty, great peeping Tom. Whoa, take it easy there. I just feel like I should keep changing his voice into, like, the most obnoxious thing. Please, I really think the court should hear what the defendant has to say. Your Excellency, I see no need whatsoever to entertain the accused's remarks. I will grant the request of the defense. But, Your Excellency! This is likely to be the final cross-examination of these proceedings. As such, I believe it would be ill-advised to stifle the defendant's obvious concerns. So, whilst recognizing that this contravenes regular protocol, I hereby call upon the defendant to speak. Oh. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. It was nothing to do with Dr. Wilson. We were discussing the stolen poison.
Hold it!
The stolen poison that killed the victim, you mean? I suspected her of being the one to steal it. I mean, just think about how she killed Dr. Wilson. That is true. Additionally, Miss Brett certainly had knowledge of the new poison. But surely it would be no easy task to steal a highly secret toxin being developed by the government. Nah, she was just able to walk in and grab it. Indeed, all visitors to the laboratory are thoroughly searched when they leave. Even if a thief managed to avoid being seen by myself or a colleague, getting the poison out would be very difficult. That is true. I pestered Professor Mikotoba until he agreed to show me the poison when I visited his laboratory, but as I left, I was searched from top to tail. Miss Brett rather bluntly revealed the existence of the toxin we'd been developing, you see. And since Saki-san expressed such an interest in it, I felt unable to refuse. Obviously, I gave nothing away, other than the fact that it was an extremely potent substance. I'm very ashamed of myself. It's just that I've had a singularly terrible experience with a deadly poison. I wanted to look my old enemy in the eye. Surely you understand that. To find out if my suspicions were true, I confronted Miss Brett about the poison. I told her that if there were to be an incident involving it somehow, it wouldn't just be the university. The military would be dragged into it, the whole government even. It'd be a complete disaster. And how did Miss Brett respond to your concerns? She just curled those beautiful lips of hers and said she didn't know the first thing about it. In English, actually. Ah, yes. Many Memo-san? One small question if you don't mind. I do mind. Can't you see I'm busy? Clearly you were outside the beach hut listening in whilst the defendant and Miss Brett were conversing. Presumably then, it was you who wrote this article about what you heard. Exclusive. Deadly poison stolen from Humane Medical Research Laboratory. The story was published in this morning's edition of the Shoyu News. The details are too accurate for it to have been written by anyone else. Sorry, don't know what you're talking about. Yes, look at this. The entire article. It's almost what I said to Miss Brett, word for word. Ah! Well, Minimemo-san? As a journo and as a citizen of a free country, I don't have to reveal my sources. That's a founding principle of Minimemoism. Father's clearly right about this. That reporter did write that article, and he based it on what he overheard from outside the hut. Neato. Okay. So that is what it was all about. You were trying to cover up the fact that you were listening in. That's why you came up with that stinking story about me arguing with her. Shut up. My stories never stink. Look, whatever you say, little girl, it doesn't alter the facts. Your Excellency, there is something I want to say, and I want it to go on record. Very well, you may amend your formal testimony. The point is, if you'd poisoned someone, there'd be no reason to then go and stab the person as well. Let's press that. Fuck. I clicked and it just didn't. Well, that's because I had to hit Q, I think. Okay. Oh, yeah, hold on. Stop paying attention again. If the victim had unwillingly taken the poison already, the reporter would have had no reason to stab her. On the face of it, that logic sounds entirely reasonable, but there's no question that this man was responsible for Miss Brett's murder. If we could think of a plausible explanation as to why he might have stabbed her even after the poisoning, I feel sure that everything would drop into place. That is what we should be looking for. Yes, I agree, and in order to do that, I must try to glean more information. I gotta press that last statement.
Hold it.
Perhaps you doubted the efficiency of the poison and sought to make sure your victim would die. That is horse dung. What? That would be like pouring pepper on your Chinese ramen before you'd even tasted it. Completely reckless. Although, it might surprise you to learn that I am a bit of an impetuous pepper pourer as it seems. Once the victim had taken the poison, she would have been only minutes away from death. And yet this man then proceeded to stab her in the back as well. There has to be a good reason for that. If it was the reporter who gave the poison to Miss Brett, then clearly he must have done it prior to Ray entering the hut. Yes, that is undeniable. But between him leaving the hut and the victim being stabbed, there was one very crucial change in the situation. Sorry? What change? The reporter overheard the conversation between Ray and the Englishwoman. Ah, yes, that is it. So he didn't know if the poison would be effective because he poisoned them. He poisoned Brett before Ray explained the poison. That's when Memo-san first found out the exact nature of the poison he'd used. That could be the key here. Okay. I know what I gotta do. Probably. Present the poison article.
Objection!
Well, I can think of one reason. What? But before I explain, I'd like you to confirm something for the court. Did you glean all the information for this newspaper article from what you overheard outside the hut? Of course he did. There can be no question of that. After all, when we were all in the laboratory together, all we were told is that it was a terrible toxin. And there is one more important fact to consider. According to the witness, Membami-san's verbal attack against the victim began as soon as she entered the hut. In other words, it would have been impossible for her to have slipped the poison into Miss Brett's drink.
Objection!
Where are you going with this, counsel? Memo-san has made it quite clear that he observed every single thing that happened in the beach hut. If the defendant had somehow found an opportunity, this man would have seen it. Ah. Which means that Miss Brett couldn't have imbibed the poison whilst the defendant was present. In fact, it must have been administered to her before Membami-san entered the hut. Yes, very articulately put. When I walked into the hut, I immediately started to press Miss Brett about the poison. At which point, Memo-san overheard some worrying information. Worrying information? What worrying information? The information which she subsequently included in his newspaper article, namely, that the poison was being developed in strict secrecy, and that it couldn't be readily attained. Absolutely. In fact, that is quite an understatement. That the only possible place it could come from is my lab. And furthermore, anyone afflicted by the poison would exhibit telltale signs in death. The extreme constriction of the pupils. Yes, it is quite stark when you see it. There are other poisons that show similar symptoms, but not among new substances that are undetectable. In other words, it would be clear that the victim's life had been ended by the use of this particular poison, which would reduce the number of suspects to only a handful of people. Ah. Everyone in my laboratory is aware of the unique properties of the toxin we've been developing. None of them would be foolish enough to attempt to use it for some nefarious deed. Membami-san being no exception. Therefore, we can conclude that whoever administered this unique poison to the victim was a layperson, unaware of its telltale properties. Ugh. In other words, someone like you, Rayton Memo. It was you who stole the poison from this laboratory that day. And it was you who administered it to the unwitting victim. But you quickly realized that was a terrible mistake, because the poison caused such unusual symptoms and it was so traceable. As you listened in from the far side of the beach hut's thin walls, you learned of these facts. But you'd already given the victim the poison at that point. It was too late. So you hatched a plan to disguise your mistake. A plan that involved stabbing the victim in the back through the reed screen. But what good could that possibly do? Isn't it obvious, Counsel? The plan was to kill Miss Brett before the poison could take effect. Once in the blood, the poison causes the onset of pupil constriction, but he had hoped to precipitate the victim's death before that happened, hadn't he? Exactly. Because without any revealing signs of the new secret poison's use, no one would have ever suspected. This is extraordinary. Yes, the effects of the poison meant it would be too easily identified, so the killer had to mask its use, which he attempted to do by plunging a knife into the middle of the victim's back. Interesting. Order! The argument presented is sound. The court is satisfied that it warrants consideration. Does the prosecution have a counter-argument it wishes to put forward? Well, there are a number of... yes, I counter completely.
Objection!
The prosecution's evasive response clearly shows that in much the same way as he nurtures the remnants of his top knot, he's clinging to lost hope. Lost hope? And he objects again. And there goes his hat. Arg, you pathetic, useless, fallen samurai. Fallen? Who are you calling fallen? My burgeoning growth is on... I don't need a counter-argument. What? What are you talking about? It should be blatantly obvious. I stole the poison, you say. Gave it to the victim, you say. Stabbed her, you say. Lots of fine theories. But I don't need a counter-argument because you don't have an argument yourself. Where's your evidence? Yes, you make it all sound so plausible, don't you? But without evidence, it means nothing. Whereas I base my news on facts. Facts? What do you mean? Explain yourself. I mean, what the professor said earlier in this trial, it is all here in my many memos. Every word, every slip of the tongue, all noted. That is what the Shoyu News is famous for. It is the power of the printed word. But surely it would be no easy task to steal a highly secret toxin being developed by the government. Indeed, all the visitors to the laboratory are thoroughly searched when they leave. Even if a thief managed to avoid being seen by myself or a colleague, getting the poison out would be very difficult. How's that then? Blown the story wide open. See, I rate in many memo, a mere reporter from the Shoyu News. Couldn't possibly have stolen that poison from the professor's laboratory. Ah. But there can't be any question of it. He must have stolen the poison that day. He stole it and used it to kill. And if that is the case, as you've identified, the poison itself is the definitive evidence we need. Because whoever stole it from the laboratory that day is the true culprit here. What is your point, you annoyingly handsome country bumpkin? My point is this: there is one way that you, Minimemo-san, could have stolen the poison that day. Huh? I need to check the court record, because I don't know. Okay. Let's see. I figure it has something to do with the pen, but I don't think I have any. Let's examine it more. If we take off the pen's lid... Now, let us unscrew the barrel, shall we? Ah. This must be the little reservoir that holds the ink. Yes, you fill it by drawing ink from a bottle up through the nib. Is something wrong, Father? Just that there doesn't appear to be any ink in there, that is all. Oh yes, you are right. It is pretty much empty. Well, it could be on the verge of running out, I suppose. I think that's what I need. So I'm going to work with it. I have heard enough verbal conjecture now. Thank you. What the court must be shown is evidence. What proof do you have that this witness stole the poison on the day in question?
Take that.
The fountain pen. The proof, Your Excellency, is this fountain pen. Ah, a fountain pen? How can that be possibly relevant? These magical pens seem to have enough ink to write many thousands of kanji letters. I mean, characters. I believe they arrived in our country for the first time some 15 years ago now. Bah, I swear by a weasel hair calligraphy brush and nothing else. These newfangled pens are merely a fad. Well, as a forward-thinking man of words, I obviously love my fountain pen. Suck up a soup can of sumptuous ink, and one's work is awash with words in the blink of an eye. That is right. Fountain pens have a small wet reservoir in the barrel, into which ink is sucked up through the nib of the pen in order to write with later. What is all this talking of sucking up ink have? Ah! And just as it's possible to suck up ink through the reservoir, it is also possible to eject it through the nib again, of course. My word! Can this really be? Well, Mini-Memo-san. When you saw the deadly poison before your eyes in the laboratory that day, you used your fountain pen, your very lifeblood, to steal some of it, didn't you? By siphoning the poison up through the nib and into the pen's reservoir.
Objection!
More absurdity. That never happened. True, we've never heard that there were procedures in place to prevent thefts like this from the laboratory. But would anyone have thought to look inside a fountain pen of all places? No, I'm a little ashamed to say that for fear of offending our guests, such a detailed search would not have been conducted. Well, this is quite startling, I must say. I remind the court that this pen was found in the clutches of the victim when she died. In other words, it was dropped at the scene by Mini-Memo-san. So, the crucial question is, when exactly was the pen dropped? Are you suggesting the natural conclusion is that in your haste to act whilst the victim was distracted for a moment, you dropped the pen after you emptied the poison from it into her glass? There could be a number of alternative explanations. For example, the witness could have been using his pen to write down details of his conversation with the victim. And when shocked by one of her outrageous answers, the pen fell from his quivering hand.
Objection!
No, that can't be. If it was, how do you explain why the pen was devoid of ink? What? As you can see for yourself if you examine the evidence, there would appear to be no ink present in the reservoir. One newspaper reporter goes to interview someone with nothing in his pen. No, the pen was dropped after the poison that filled its reservoir had been emptied into the victim's glass. Witness, what do you have to say in your defense? Ha 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 ha. So this is how our modern justice system works, is it? So what if the ink in my pen runs dry? So what if my pencil snaps? I can always claw my way back into the game. I have plenty in reserve. Ah, yeah. You claim I sucked the poison into my pen? That's a wild speculation, nothing more. If you thought you could bring down a fine, upstanding citizen with a trick like that, think again. It looks as though it's going to take one final decisive blow to finish this matter. As I see it, the situation is now very simple. It rests upon whether or not this witness did indeed steal the poison on the day in question. And therefore, it all depends upon whether or not the defense can prove that he did with evidence. Ha! No such evidence could possibly exist. Mini-memo-sen. This is how our modern justice system works. What? In the courtroom, evidence is everything. Something you would do well to remember. Because we are all well past the point of speculation at this stage, I assure you. Very well then. I call upon the defense to present the aforementioned evidence. This is it then. This will be the final piece in the puzzle. The defense can prove by means of this item that it was the witness's pen that used to steal the poison. The chemical reagent. Counsel, what is that bottle? This bottle contains the unique chemical reagent that can identify the poison in question. Ah! Yes, that poison is an entirely new synthesis of alkaloids developed by my colleagues and I. It would be impossible to detect traces of it by any other method. Or, from another perspective, simply with this chemical reagent, anybody at all could check for traces of the poison. A reagent? What? One drop of the contents of this bottle on the tip of your fountain pen, Mini-memo-san, is all it will take to solve this case beyond all reasonable doubt. No, you can't. I won't. Smashes the chemical reagent. You fool! Your crimes are bad enough, but at least know when to admit defeat. He's gonna smash evidence just like Brett did in the first trial. Your Excellency, the defense requests permission to carry out the test on the fountain pen at once. Hiya! This isn't my fault. The Empire drove me to do this, trying to hold its head as a civilized nation, but bowing as I took my arms to the Maui fountain pen, all in the matters of justice and harassment. I can't. Sato, with me. I'm there. Hiya! You probably shouldn't be doing that in court. Did I do it right? That's the Sato takedown, wasn't it? Not quite. That was the Ryotaro takedown. The instant the first drop of the reagent touched the nib of the fountain pen, it was clear to everyone present. Dun dun dun. Poison. When I saw it there in the lab, the poison, the devil got hold of me, and I decided to do it on a whim. I excused myself and emptied all the ink down the sink in the bathroom, washing the reservoir out carefully. And then you waited for an opportunity to suck up some of the poison, didn't you? Into your fountain pen. Yes, that is right. Answer me one thing, Mini-memo-san. Why did you steal it? For what purpose? Isn't it obvious? To find out what it was made of and expose it in an article. I mean, it was a secret project after all, too juicy for a journal like me to pass up. Then why did the Englishwoman end up dead? I went into that hut intending to quiz her on her situation. That is all as a reporter. As a known killer enjoying full freedom, evading justice by leaving the country. I told her what I thought about it. And she just laughed in my face. Oh, what is this? A Far Eastern caveman purporting to practice journalism? Really, you must learn the difference between reporting and listening at doorways. You ignorant plebeian. What did you call me? This country, with its pretensions to a justice system, to a free press, it's really depressing. You see, our superior ways in the West, you lack the mental capacity to emulate them. Get out of here, you oaf. Get out of here and crawl back into the cave you came from. That is when I remembered about the deadly poison I happened to have in my pen at the time. What a terrible tale. In my head, I knew I should just get out of there as quickly as possible, but I couldn't. I couldn't let her get away with what she'd done, when she clearly had no remorse at all. I suppose it was my journo spirit, getting all fired up. Honestly, it was I'm glad he killed her, because it was annoying that she got away. There's no reason she should have. I'd like to ask you something. Yes? You often talk about justice, but surely as a journalist, you could have used other means to deliver the justice you sought. There's no justice in the press. Sorry? After that trial 9 months ago, I kept digging and digging to find out what had happened in that courtroom, and finally, I discovered the truth. It was a cover-up. That's what it was. Cover-up? What do you mean? I remind you of your position, witness. Be careful what you say. Oh, come on. Doesn't it strike you as strange? We are suddenly not allowed to convict a foreign national? Consular jurisdiction should never have to come into it. And yet that puffed-up Englishwoman was going to set sail away into the sunset a free woman. The only possible explanation is that, behind the scenes, some deal had gone down between Britain and Japan. What sort of deal? I'd done my research, dug up all the dirt. It was all ready to be published. But you know what happened? The editor just tore the article up. He came under pressure from the government, you mean. If our government is going to let criminals walk free, if they're going to crush the free press, then what choice do I have but to see that justice is done myself? Let us not forget, Minimemo-san, that you committed murder yourself, and you tried to lay blame at the defendant's door. I'm sorry, but you're no better than Giselle Brett. What? The truth is, you have no right to talk about justice at all. I suppose. If only he didn't blame, blame Ray, then it would have been so much better. It would have been so much easier to like him a bit more. It would appear that we have reached a conclusion in this trial at last. Counsel for the defense, Ryotaro Naruhodo. Oh, yes, sorry, Your Excellency. Just musing in a manly way here. It is almost unbelievable that this is your first experience at the Supreme Court. It was an excellent performance. In truth, it very much reminded me of your cousin's exploits. Oh, Naruhodo Runosuke, you mean? The way he handled the trial 9 months ago, and the way you handled this one, it gives me hope that we are genuinely entering a new era of justice in this land. That is very flattering, Your Excellency. Hearing the defense you put forward today made me feel most keenly that the future of our justice system will be forged by you and your contemporaries. Thank you. So, Prosecutor Aochi, do you have any final thoughts? Prosecutor Aochi! I, Takatsuchi Aochi of the Aochi clan, have been bested by a callow youth not once but twice. If there was any shred of my former self left, it has withered and died here today. Gosh, your journey to cultural enlightenment sure took a while, didn't it? Silence! Rather than living on in shame, I will end it all now with this blade. For that is the true path of Aochiism. Aochi ism? One hopes that is the only way in which he'll be modeling himself after the witness. Is he gonna stab himself, or is he just gonna cut that little thing off the top of his head? Sprig of my topknot, the time is right for farewell. Hope is lost forever. Takasuchi. That's not a very good quote. Ah! We're just following his hair. Now, in regard to the defendant, Raymond Bami-san. Yes, Your Excellency. I have reached my final verdict. I hereby find you not guilty. I love the petals in the courtroom. I just love these petals. They are beautiful. Court is adjourned. 13th August, 2:38 p.m. Supreme Court of Jiaxia. Defendant's Antechamber 3. It is over. My heart is still pounding in my chest, though. It is all I can do, just to stay standing. Lawyers have such great responsibility, such a great burden to bear. Don't they, Naruhodo-san? Sato! Thank you so much. You were so dashing in there. Ray and Father. Honestly, I'm so touched by everything you've... Oh, no. I think I'm going to cry. It wasn't easy, but together, we made it. I was on the verge of tears at the end, too. The only reason I'm still here is because of you. Oh no, I can't take all the credit. It took courage to tell the truth in there. You did wonderfully, Ray. So, I would have to say that congratulations belong to you. Sato, don't be so standoffish. Sorry? We are friends, equals, and the trial's over, so no more of this formal super humility nonsense. It is time to celebrate with swagger, to throw caution to the wind. Caution to the what? I'm the great defense lawyer, Ryutaro Naruhodo, and I'm taking you out to a milk bar tomorrow. Or something. Right, I see. I'll, think about it, Ray. At any rate, we really knocked the wind out of that horrid man, and it felt so good. Yes, it was satisfying. It really was. Isn't there anybody else we could throw together? I hope you're not looking at me, Ray. Oh my goodness! No, of course not. Of course not! Ah, there it is at last. Ray's lovely smile. You fought for your friend to the very last. As your father, I'm extremely proud of you, defense attorney Ryutaro Naruhodo. Thank you, but I couldn't have done it without your help. Anyway, it is time to bid farewell to Ryutaro, I think. I shall miss him in a way, but it is back to Susato Mikotoba now. So, I'll never see him again then. What a terrible shame. What? What is happening? Ah, Sasaki-san and Inspector Osanaga, I do hope you've been keeping well. Is that really you? I thought he had known it the entire time. Yes, I had changed my appearance for, well, obvious reasons, I hope, but it is me. Susato Mikotoba. I don't... So dashing, so divine. No! doubly dashing, yes, and devilishly divine. Just look at you. I had no idea, Mrs. Sato-san Esquires, that you were locum student Naruhodo-san Esquire's cousin. Astounding ace attorney. You said the word. You said the ace attorney. Poor Saseki-san, so confused. I still remember the first time I ever met him. He was in a prison cell in London. What an extraordinary conundrum it was that the unwitting student from Japan found himself embroiled in. But after Naruhodo-san's skillful defense at the Old Bailey, Saseki-san was free to return to Japan. And now he seems to have earned himself great fame as an author. I'm stunned. That is a truly impressive disguise. Even I had no idea, and I am a chief inspector at the police bureau who came up with Mr. Turtle, no less. I'm not sure you should be admitting to that, Inspector. Amazing. You're a woman of many faces, I see. Just two, really? And this was a once-in-a-lifetime event, I hope. Oh, I'm not a patch on you, though, Inspector. Well, I am a professional, of course. No, he's not. I do worry about Inspector Hosonaga sometimes, I really do. 9 months ago, when he appeared here at the Supreme Court to testify, he was undercover disguised as the head waiter of the restaurant. And then, on the steamship to Great Britain, of course, disguised as a sailor to keep us safe on the journey. Though, that didn't help you, did it, Kazuma-sama? I feel like there's a bigger picture here. From my perspective, I have to admit that I have mixed feelings about all this. I mean, now the truth has been lost forever. But what do you mean? I'm talking about the murder that the English woman committed at the end of last year. Ah, yes, it was an English doctor she killed, as I understand it. Dr. John H. Wilson, yes, the man I invited to Japan personally. The mystery is, why did she kill him? And now that the culprit herself is dead, we'll probably never know the answer. On the voyage to Great Britain, we had a most unexpected encounter with Mr. Herlock Sholmes, the great detective, I mean. Yes, I remember Mr. Sholmes well, of course. Ah, my arch nemesis. How lightly you utter his name. Well, according to the stories published about him in The Adventures of Herlock Sholmes, the detective once had a partner who helped him solve crimes, a best friend. And that man was an exceptional doctor of medicine by the name of John H. Wilson. What? Dr. Wilson? I just can't believe that it is a coincidence. I think the English doctor of medicine killed here in Japan 9 months ago must have been the friend and partner of Mr. Sholmes. And if that is really true, then the poor girl won't ever see her beloved father again. I thought we made that clear last, like, in the fifth, maybe the fifth or fourth case. I can't remember. As you know, I traveled to Great Britain once myself to study. It was around the time you were born. Yes, grandmother told me about it. On returning to Japan, I took up my professorship at the Imperial Yume University. But I also serve another role, as an advisor to the government on diplomatic affairs. Yes, I was aware of that as well. In that case, I'm sure you understand that there are some confidential matters I cannot divulge to you. Could you just tell me one thing? Why did you summon me back to Japan? It has been 2 months now since I returned. When I left England, it was because an urgent telegram had arrived from Japan. It said that you'd collapsed with a high fever and you were growing weaker by the day. What? Where did that news come from? That is what I'd like to know, because after that long sea voyage, I found you in fine health, Father. Was there something in Great Britain that you perceived might inconvenience me in some way, or harm me? That is really the only explanation I can think of. Yet, we left Ryunosuke there. Dear me, do you reserve your most cutting glares for your father, Susato? I'm sorry, my dear, I simply can't... Ah, let me go! Many Mema-san. So, one throw wasn't enough for you. I've got one last thing to say before they take me away. Professor, me? I know the truth. I know you had a hand in what went on. In that visiting student's fate. Visiting student? Giselle Brett, you mean? No, not her. The student of law who left for Great Britain 8 months ago. What? Student of law? He must mean... Kazuma-sama! What are you talking about? What is it? What does any of this have to do with Kazuma-sama? Nobody here in Japan knows anything about it. They don't know that the guy never made it to England, that he died on that steamship, and that he'll never... Ah! He throw too? Well, I didn't expect to find him in here. What were you officers playing at? Terribly sorry, Your Excellency. He's a lot more fit for his age. I was coming to tell you that the rickshaw has arrived, Yujin, and it's a good job I came by. Yes, thank you for dealing with him, and I'll be there shortly. Oh, Your Excellency? Ha ha ha! The trial's over. I'm not Your Excellency anymore, merely your father's friend, Seshiro Jigoku. And may I say that since I saw you last, you seem to have taken on a more dashing appearance, Sasato. Did you know all along, from the start of the trial? Ha 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 ha! A judge sees everything, Sasato. I couldn't let you take the risk. If Seishiro here hadn't known, and then he'd recognized you, so I had a word in his ear beforehand as an old friend. So, Seishiro, shall we? Yes, having ruled on that case, we now have various diplomatic issues to address. Before you go, Father. Sorry, my dear, but we shall have to return to our earlier conversation at a later date. But well done again, both of you. You did admirably. Oh, thank you very much. What did you think of my Seishiro sling, hey? It's been a while since I sent a man flying like that. Ha 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 ha! I'm not really good at reading laugh. It's just not easy, I guess. Whatever could Father be hiding from me? About Giselle Brett? About Dr. Wilson? And now, it seems, according to the reporter, about Kazuma-sama. I'm going to have to bring this up with Father sometime, when nobody else is around. Sasato, fuck, I said Sasato, I meant to say Saseki. Judicial Assistant Mikitoba-san Esquires, could I have a word? Oh, yes, of course, Saseki-san. What is it? I think perhaps it could be fate that we're meeting again like this now. You see, there's something I need to tell you. Oh? I believe that it may be related to the reason why your father summoned you back from England. This I have to hear. Please, Saseki-san, tell me at once. I will. As you know, my time in England was terrible. Cursed, I have no doubt. Such awful things I was embroiled in. Thank goodness locum student Naruhodo-san Esquire stepped in. After he secured my freedom, I couldn't wait to get on a ship back here to my homeland. Having arrived in Japan, I submitted a report about my experiences to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The next thing I knew, I had a visitor. It was your father, Professor Mikitoba. He wanted to ask me all sorts of things about my report. My father? He seemed to be especially taken with a particular part of the report. Anyway, he left eventually, having thoroughly quizzed me. But it was the very next day that he sent the telegram to you asking you to return to Japan. What was it then, the particular part my father was interested in? I don't really know exactly. But do you remember them? Those two terrible cases I was caught up in. Of course, I can never forget. Your father seemed to concern himself mainly with the second case. The second one? You mean the one Mr. Sholmes forbade any of us to talk about in public? Wait. I only remember one case with Saseki. He was only in that case where nobody actually died that I remember. Which is why the only case involving you that member of the public is aware of is the first. Well, I don't care. I don't have to listen to what that dastardly detective says. Anyway, the point is, it seems that case somehow holds the key to all these curious unanswered questions. That horrific, hideous, heinous case. The case of the haunted lodgings. Interesting. That might be the next case that we take on. That case somehow caused my father to summon me urgently back to Japan. I thought that whole business was over, but it seems I was wrong. Perhaps that was only the start. Perhaps the story is not yet told. Ah, the tree.
So, the mystery of that English woman's death is solved, thank goodness. And having stood in the Supreme Court now, I think I can comprehend a little better. How you must be feeling as you fight for people's freedom in a foreign land, Naruhodo-san. But actually, I'm writing to you today because of another matter. I met Soseki-san and we talked about that second case he was involved in. Father has said nothing to me, but I feel certain of it. That case holds the key to some great unsolved mystery. My notes on the case should still be in the office, tucked away at the back of the shelves on the left. Perhaps you might like to look over them again. Today, for the first time this year, it feels as though summer has arrived. The sky is a brilliant blue. It makes me long to see you again. Yours, Susato.
That's the end of that. Susato's success. Save progress. Next up, the memoirs of the Clouded Kokoro. Okay. Now, before I end this off, there is some stuff in the special contents. Yeah. The escapades. I do think that I'm gonna go over all 8 escapades. It'll either be, before I take on the second case, or after I finish the game. But it could possibly prove useful for me to take him on. Yeah, because this still has, it just seems like it's gonna be important, so I might take it soon. Anyway, with that, we'll be ending stream there, and see y'all later.